We know kids are stupid because we were stupid. And unfortunately, we live in a society where your talent can take you places that your character can't sustain you. And we see that with these influencers, very talented people. We see it in sports. They don't have the characters to sustain them.
John is a phenomenal man. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things. John is a author. He's a man of the world. He's a man of experience, wisdom, and I don't even know what else to say. Like, you guys just have to hear his story, which he's going to get into today, and you'll see exactly why I'm so excited to have him here.
At some point in time, every man has a crisis. He has a place where he has to realize that he's either going to have to know who he is so he can be true to that or not. And I think I would encourage any young man to preempt that, is to do that work and ask these questions. If you're 20, 30, just listen to someone who's been there, lost it all, and say, just refocus now. Because you can have fantastic relationships, be a man of tremendous character, and make money.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin End.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're joined by our man, Dr. John A. King. Welcome to the show.
G'day, mate. How you going? Good to have you here, fellas. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. We are excited. Guys, today I've got a very special guest for you. John is a phenomenal man. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things. John is a author. He's a man of the world. He's a man of experience, wisdom, and I don't even know what else to say. Like, you guys just have to hear his story, which he's going to get into today, and you'll see exactly why I'm so excited to have him here. John is also going to talk a lot about what it is to be a man. He's going to describe some of the things, the stats, the discernments around being a man, what it is in today's society, especially around some interesting things like child trafficking. John comes with a lot of knowledge on life. He knows how to coach. He's going to talk a little bit about how he helps people, what things he's been building, and overall, he's just going to share his amazing story. You know, usually we sit here and we have these guys and we'll go through it with, hey, how'd you build your business? What problems did you face? And we'll get into the weeds of like that super tangible physical stuff. But John, even though he's been an entrepreneur and a business owner and so much more, John is going to talk all about his experience in life. So you guys have one hell of a story coming up. I'm extremely excited. Let's get into it. All right, so John, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you're doing, and how we got here?
Oh, mate. I came to America after 9/11. I was on the first plane out of Australia. Because as goes America, so goes the rest of the world, economically, spiritually, militarily. And I was very grateful to America. I was very grateful to America because if it wasn't, I probably would have been a Nazi or speaking Japanese. And I felt like my big brother got a kick in the nuts. And I remember the pain. I remember waking up and seeing this surreal thing happening in New York and thought, bloody hell, like that's going to hurt. And so I literally did. I waited at the airport, and the first flight out on a Thursday on United, 2 weeks after I was on it, and I was over here and I was speaking in a bunch of small churches and just trying to help them and encouraging people to understand that God's not done with America, that God has plans for America. And I had the privilege of becoming a citizen under the first Trump administration. And it is phenomenal. I love being an Indigenous Australian. I'm very grateful for my roots and growing up. But I'm not an Australian American. I'm an American, man. I have achieved more and done more and touched more and learnt more and grown more in the United States than I could have possibly anywhere in the world. So so that's part of the story of how I got here. Yep.
Tell us a bit more before you got to America, how you got just where you are in life. What are you building? What are you excited about? Can we get a little more of the backstory of who the man John King is?
Yeah, okay. So my heritage is I'm an Australian, an Umbrani, an Australian Aboriginal man. But I didn't know that until just 2 years ago, because in Australia they had a policy of breeding the black out. And in Australian Aborigines, the melanin is a recessive gene. In the African, it's a dominant gene. And so what they would do is they would take children off our mothers and give them to European families, and they literally roll them into the foyer. You'd pick a black baby or a brown baby, or in my case, blonde-haired, brown-eyed baby, and they would go home, and that was it. So I only really came to that understanding as being part of who I was, and it really did fill a big identity hole, because an identity is what you say about yourself when you're alone in your own head, like who am I and what I'm about. And this understanding of identity is something that's been perverted today, I believe, as opposed to an inner question of solace and connection with yourself. It's become an external validation. So that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is the people that raised me sexually abused and trafficked me. I was trafficked for about 14 years. But the funny thing was, and this is often the case with men, is I didn't have recall of that event till 2008. And I was 45 years of age. And up until that point, I had these little frames of things that I saw float around in my head, things that were done to me and things I'd been made to do. And I just accepted it was normal. And in 2008, I had recall of these events, and they all came together and started to play continuously like a movie for about 7 years. And to be honest, sometimes they still do. And that led to the total collapse of everything that I'd built. My doctorate's in theology. I tell people it's turning shit into fertilizer, which I think is an apt equation for what I've done with my life. And so I'd spent the years traveling the world. I love your podcast, One Percenters. I was a one percenter. I'd published 27 books. I was speaking in the biggest auditoriums and the biggest churches around the world. I was the blow it and go it guy, and my world totally collapsed. I've lost my first marriage, estranged from my children, financially bankrupt. And the last 15 years have been this process of scraping this poo together that was my life and rebuilding it and building it to such a state that it's now bearing fruit, and a fruit that's remaining, a fruit that is positive, productive. And so this whole journey that I've been on I'm 62 now. So this whole journey I've been on has always gone through these stages of collapse and rebuild, very much a phoenix concept. And I fought against that for a long time. I thought it was a sign of me being a failure as a man and as a leader. But what I've come to realize is that this is my normal, and this is normal for most. It's just that most people don't talk about it. Our life is often more in flux than it is in consistency. And so, there you go. There's a little bit about me.
So I'm just curious. I mean, you traveled the world, you wrote these books, you had it all, and then it seemingly looks like you've lost it all, but I know that's not your story. So how does someone turn living one life and then transitioning into another? How do they turn that transition into empowerment? How does someone not get consumed by it? How does someone have resilience through all of that? What helped you make those difficult transitions in life?
Great question, Vin. I think when we start with life, we start often living from the outside in. Yeah, in our 20s, we're told where to go to school, what friends to have, what to marry, who to marry even, what school to go to. Then we get into our 30s and we're doing the whole marriage, college, mortgage thing. And in our 40s, it's like whiskey tango foxtrot. What happened? Here I am, basically no longer married to my best friend, but living with a roommate with a couple of kids that I don't even like. I don't even like my own children. And in a job that I really don't like. And unfortunately, that's the trajectory to a lot of us, because we place value on perishable items. If you think about it, we actually don't value that which is irreplaceable, like our health, and our relationships and our well-being and our spiritual state. We actually just value the material things. And when we value those material things that can just come and go, when all our self-esteem is based around that, then when you lose a career, even a family, even your health, you lose these material things, houses, cars, whatever, you start to realize that at some point you've got to start living from the inside out. And I think one of the keys, transitional spaces for me when I went through the trauma that I did, was understanding that I have to shift it from living from the inside out. I had to align my purpose, mission, visions, and values, that they had to be run. I realized that I was running crooked for the first 45 years, trying to meet everybody else's expectation because I really didn't have an idea of who I was. And I think we don't do that well in Western society. We're uncomfortable with sitting with ourselves. And particularly as men, I think because men are prone to be action driven. But see, that's the thing. We're portrayed as being action driven, yet we are the greatest poets, the greatest painters, the greatest chefs, and the greatest meditators in a lot of ways. And I think Western men have lost the sense of solace and solitude. And I think it would be good for us to get back to those essential things of being comfortable with our own souls and being able to unpack some of these things as we grow and go.
I love your story. I think that is pretty much an American success story right there. When everybody talks about success, it's not this, right? It's this. And the word, I know, I feel like the word success, and, you know, we try to define it all the time when we talk about goals and aspirations and things like that. They get defined with this, you know, root word that has so many different definitions. But money is material, right? It's fugazi, it's fake. It doesn't buy happiness. And I think that's the ultimate goal here of what we're talking about, is finding your true self and, you know, focusing on your inward. And I'm not going to bring it towards, you know, religion, because I personally think the only true way for eternal happiness is to, you know, be one with God and put God first before everything.
Yeah.
But that being said, I want to bring it back to something that you said, because I think personally with entrepreneurs and business owners, especially younger demographic, with anywhere from 25 to 45 specifically, they're focused on money. And somebody who came from money and lost it all and redefining himself, why does that not make you happy? I feel like I need something like as specific as you can, something that will scare somebody out of trying to focus inward or reshaping their identity to their true selves. If you could scare somebody who is currently going through success and their only thing that they know how to do is grind and hustle because that's their ethos and that's what they know, how do you scare them straight? Because I feel like if you can somehow you can answer that question. It's so difficult and it's almost impossible. What would you say? What would you say to something like that?
When we're young, we're stupid, and we need to just accept that. We've all been young and we've all got kids, and kids are stupid, and we were stupid. We know kids are stupid because we were stupid. And unfortunately, we live in a society where your talent can take you places that your character can't sustain you. And we see that with these influencers, very talented people. We see it in sports. They don't have the character to sustain them. At some point in time, every man has a crisis. He has a place where he has to realize that he's either going to have to know who he is so he can be true to that or not. And I think I would encourage any young man to preempt that, is to do that work and ask these questions. You said something before we talked on that touched me. I mean, moved me, because I don't have family. I'm an orphan. And you talk about having a grandfather that you talk to 4 or 5 times a week. Now, I think that's probably one of the richest things Now, I do a lot of these, man, but that is one of the richest things that I've heard another man say. If these people could stop long enough to get off their phones and have a conversation with an old bugger, they would understand where life goes and what life's about. And if they will listen, then they will do it. I'm sitting with two men at the moment, holding both their hands and watching them die. And at no point in any conversation that I've had in the last, I mentioned this before, I had two brothers die this year. I'm sitting with two friends. One was Vietnam War, SEAL Team 1 would take him in and he'd kill bad guys. The other guy is a Delta Force guy, Gulf War syndrome. I'm holding hands with both these men. Not once, Shane, have they in the last month ever talked about how much money they made or didn't made. They are concerned with their families. They are concerned with disabled children. They're concerned about a wife they've left behind because they don't feel like they've made some choices that are going to benefit her. They're concerned because they're sitting at home by themselves on an oxygen machine and no one wants to come and visit them because they don't have relationship. And I would encourage the men that are tuning in to just stop. If you're 20, 30, just listen to someone who's been there, lost it all, and say, just refocus now. Because you can have fantastic relationships, be a man of tremendous character, and make money. But if you are just worshiping money and pursuing money only, then you will do that at the sake of all those other things. And just don't. Take a little bit more time, grow into your boots, and you get to have it all.
Relationships are rocket ships, as Ben always says. What he's referencing to is my grandfather. My grandfather is my best friend. Very easy and proud to say it. He has been for really close for the last 15 years of my life. We talk all the time. He's a business owner. He's an entrepreneur. He was very successful. He was in prison. He was a drug runner. He's the first guy, the first man who broke my nose, right? So that was all just completely respect and authority. And now he's a man of faith. He is sober. And he still loves to break my balls because that's his core stuff and that's who he is. And the number one thing, because my grandfather is 87 years of age. And what he talks about is losing his friends from the Navy and the men that he respected. And he talks about this all the time, that the most important thing that we have on this planet is time. And so spending it with the people that you love is the only thing that matters. And I feel like some people hear this in podcasts or face-to-face, and they don't really recognize it. You only have a limited time on this planet. That's it. It's over in a flash. Spend it with the people you love.
I think someone did a survey. They statistically, they ran it out, and they said that with the average generation's consumption of screens, that by the time they get to, I think, 75, they would have spent 9 years looking at a small screen. Now, you think of that. Would you sit down now and just watch TikTok for 9 years? But that's what people are going. What could you accomplish in 9 years?
I did that same thing, and it wasn't equated to years. It was even worse. It was like in actual week forms, and the amount of time that they spent with their family was in percentages, and don't quote me on this, was under 7%.
Yeah, that's accurate.
And the stuff that they spent on their phones was 60%. It was phones, TVs, screen time. It was 60%. 60% of their time was this, compared to intimate relationships. And obviously, Vin can talk abundantly about this, but you're spot on here. So I want to bring this back to a question. This has already been enlightening. What do you? This is probably, I keep asking loaded questions. I do, but what do you feel like is your purpose? What is your why?
Okay, I understand you're talking with a bunch of entrepreneurs, and I'm talking to fellas that are, probably 30 years younger than me. when I was your age, I was all about a 5-year plan and having this one single thing to do. And that was really important to me. But I think what I've come to understand is that I will go through different phases in my life and my one thing will change. I've just had a major career shift. This last year, I got down with my wife and I sat down and I said, babe, I've written 27 books, but I've never seen myself as a writer. I said, I want to spend the next 20 years being an author. And so we scraped everything together, made a budget and a plan, and we've given me 12 months. I've landed an agent, which is a 1 in 5 million chance. I've got 2 books going out for publication, a memoir and a novel. I wrote a novel written 4 novels in the last 7 years, all getting ready to be published, because that's where I want to go. So my why is in the process of changing. But then underneath it is a core value. And the core value is to facilitate the dreams of others. It's been a passion I've had all my life. I am a number one man. I've got quite comfortable with my strength of leadership and who I am. But I really love playing a number 2. I really love drawing alongside someone and helping them be successful. And I think that's what drives me with the trauma recovery material we've developed, and even doing things like podcasts, is like, if I can find a way to help another man, another person get that little bit down the track, then I think that is a valuable thing. I think being useful in today's society is important, because we've got a lot of mindset about being consumers of society, no one wanting to be useful in our society. I want to be a useful man. I want to be a man when they look and say, here's John King. I know John King. John King is someone who's been useful in my life and helped me. I think that's probably as close as it is to me having a one thing. My one thing isn't occupational. My one thing is moral. It's a moral compass that says that if I'm being true to who I really am, then I'm facilitating the dreams of others, and I am being useful in the planet, and courageous, useful, courageous, moral, in touch with my creator. All of these things make up my one thing.
I got a question for you. We have a lot of guys that listen to the podcast. We are a couple guys running the podcast, and I also run every week I run a free men's group, and a lot of conversations are around how do we be better men? How do we show up as more? How do we do more? How do we just continue to be these good quality people? And you've gone through a lot in your life, probably more than most. You've seen the downs, you've seen the ups, you've experienced the traumas, you've gone through them, you've come out on the other side with a phenomenal demeanor and a pleasant attitude. What do you think is one of the core components of what can help a man become a good man?
I'm a Christian man. I've been a Christian. My first encounter with Christ was when I was 13. And people ask me, how can you be a Christian having gone through what you've gone through? If you've ever heard heaven cry for your life, it's the most awe-inspiring thing. To hear the Father shed tears over a broken child. And it was like that for me when I was 15. I've never asked God why. I've only ever prayed that he would turn this round for good. And I think as men, the greatest model for manhood is Jesus Christ. And he is not, it's interesting. You say, I run something called Man Church once a month, every second Saturday. I'll send you fellas an invite. The next sermon is Jesus says, don't be a pussy. I'm not sure if I can get away with putting Jesus says, don't be a pussy. My wife says, Jesus says, don't be pussilacious, which is the old English term for don't be a pussy. It's going to have one of those winking Jesus emojis, don't be a pussy. So, because, anybody who can get the shit beat out of him, dragged and nailed to a cross, look at the guys beside him and said, forgive them for their sin. Take care of this woman for me because she's going to be alone now. and there's no one in our society to take care of her, and then take the burden of the world and in a state of submission. And people make this guy out to be some pansy floating 12 inches off the floor with a golden dinner plate. This is not the guy I know intimately. He's got the biggest set of cojones in the world, this guy. And for me, there is nothing greater than that. There is nothing more masculine than a man who knows his creator intimately or is struggling and failing forward to collide with him. You don't have to be perfect. God loves failures, man. Look at the mob he is associated with. But he loves someone trying. He would rather have a loudmouth Peter or an argumentative fighter in John and James than a wussy Judas, always. So I know this is not a religious show, so you can edit that bit if you need to. So
God's there for
I like it.
the brokenhearted, right? Iron sharpens iron, right? God is not man. God is not just God. God is 100% man and 100% God. And God gave his only son, Jesus Christ, a sinless man, to forgive us on sin, to create a new religion of Christianity, to show the right way. That was beautifully said. I heard everything there, and it was just, it was first off, it was well said, and it's exactly what God is aiming for us, right? It's giving everything to God. And you're right, this is going to turn into this show, but preach it, brother.
One of the concepts and why I encourage people to do men's group is women learn face to face, men learn shoulder to shoulder.
Brotherhood.
So even when men go through processes of therapy, therapists want to know why men don't open up. It's because you're sitting there talking at me. If you'll come and go for a bushwalk with me, or if you'll sit and watch the football game with me, then they'll get a moment and an opportunity for a conversation to happen. But when we try to make men into women and try and help men the way women need to be helped, we're not going to reach men and touch men. And I think this shoulder-to-shoulder attitude, even when I sit with men, I make sure that we are in some way sitting together around each other. And I think that's very important for men to grow up into the full stature of who they are. You mentioned something earlier, Shane, about friendships and relationships. I was talking with a mate a long time ago, and his daddy taught him. He said that most people in life will only have one friend. Most American men are incredibly lonely. I say that not as a judgment, but as a commentary coming from Australia, where the culture is very much about mateships. Most American men don't have a single friend. If you can end your life with 3 or maybe 5 good friends, one fistful of brothers, then you're amongst the richest people in the world. And so my aim when I leave here is I want to go down with 2 hands swinging. I want to have 2 hands full of people that won't mourn me for the sake of mourning me, but say, you know what, I miss John being here because he was a man I could talk to and would talk to me. And I think to live life that way, and you've got to choose those friends because it takes a lifetime to make a lifetime friend. And you've got to be committed in the highs and the lows. Sometimes you've got to graduate or let them graduate on. But I think the aim should always be, I will be the sort of man that men want to have a lifetime relationship with.
I think that it's an interesting thing. I mean, that's why I do the men's group, right? Like, I saw a video of this woman posting that her husband lost the battle to mental health, and it broke my heart, you know. And I had always wanted to kind of help men because I know the stats. Like, men are, what is it now? I think it's like 8 or 9 times more likely to commit suicide than women. You know, there's a couple 100 men that are dying every week. There's like 10 men every hour or something. It's crazy stats at this point as to how many men are lonely and in pain and suffering and taking their own lives. And this video just spoke to me because I have a young daughter, and it was the first part of the video was this guy hugging his daughter on the dance floor. Looks like they might have been at a wedding. She was wearing a dress. He was in a tuxedo, and I knew the hug because I have a daughter. It was the hug that, as a father, makes you feel like nothing else in the world matters.
Yeah.
And I saw the love those two had. And then the second part of the video just said, my husband lost his battle to mental health. And then the third part of the video was the little girl opening up a box, screaming how happy she was that daddy was home because the mom got a doll made of the dad that she could have. I don't know. That just broke my heart in that moment. And I was like, I'm making my men's group. I don't care. It's free. I want you here. I don't care if you can't pay. I don't care if you're broke. I don't care if you're rich. I'm doing it. And you're here. I don't want your money. I just want you to come home at the end of the night. And that was the start of my men's group.
I think that's phenomenal, Vin. And I think the sort of things you're talking about here and that Shane's talked about, when you ask me what my purpose is, these things that we're discussing are the sorts of things that are worthy of being a life purpose. Now, we all need provision for the vision, but these to me are vision things. These are the things that matter. I think of the 22 veterans a day that they talk about. What they don't talk about, that those 22 are predominantly men. They're all men. And we've got a pandemic amongst the suicide with men. Now, if it was happening amongst women, we'd be talking about it. But as a society, we're really good at playing gender politics, and we're not really good at human rights. And it's the same in the area of the sexual abuse and the human trafficking of boys. The numbers will tell you 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 boys are abused. It's inaccurate. It makes for a good URL. It's actually 50-50. And when it comes to human trafficking, you get outside of America and the numbers are more like between 55 and 85%, depending upon where you go in the world. Now, perpetrators of trafficking, about 45% of those are female. We're involved in the back end of the Epstein case and the Peter Nygaard who took over from him. Peter Nygaard had 125 women working every week to get him people to sexually abuse and to traffic. 125 women. Now, if that was 125 men, we'd be all hearing about how men are no good and they ran that. It was 125 women, and somehow they all get a free pass because they had bad stuff happen to them. For me, it's not gender issue, it's human rights issues. And we need to be asking questions of ourselves as a race of people and as a nation, is what happens in our soul that became so dark. Now, I think as Christian brothers, we understand where that goes, but I think there's a point where we need to be asking ourselves some of these other questions.
Well, unfortunately, that's a very, very tall glass. And the way that this society is going, I don't see it being, asked enough. I think that's why more people are returning into religion and becoming true identities within themselves, which, praise God. But you're absolutely right. I wish more people would do this, because this type of world and what we're in it's not changing anything, unfortunately. So I wanted to bring this back to you, right? Besides, the rise and fall of society or man, you're now becoming an author. This is the goal. What do you want to, who are you looking to inspire? What are these going to be, right? You've written some novelties, you've written some other books, which I'm actually excited to, order and learn more about you, as I already feel like,
Cheers, mate.
A good mentor, and I won't say a lifelong friend yet, but hopefully we can, work up to that one, as we already have some aspirations here, but are inspiring, anyways, I got
Thanks, man.
He's mine, Shane. Back off.
One of the most important, well, that's the cool thing about guys is, guys are guys.
Hey, thanks, man.
What are you looking to do with these books, and who are you looking to inspire, and what are these next steps here in the next 12 to 18 months in this journey?
So there's 2 things that I've started. On my website, I've started a launch list for the books that are coming out, and people can enroll in that. And we're going to do things like master classes with chats with the author, like how to write a book, how to self-publish, how to get an agent, and just go through that process. So I want to help people with that, because, in my recovery, I spent 15 years and about $300,000 to do it. We all want to talk about the sexy side of, rescuing traffickers, but we don't understand it's a 10 to 15-year process to get into recovery. And I was in a privileged position to be able to do that. And so what I did also alongside with starting this is I took all of that information, the book that I wrote, Deal With It, my memoir, and I put it into an 18-month-long course. And that 18-month-long course is, if you want to go through it all yourself, it's going to cost you $27 for life. And I will give you everything that I learned in the last 15 years and knock yourself out. If you want to have group coaching, then once a month I'll get together with you. If you want to have personal coaching, different level, once a week, I'll get together with you and we can talk about whatever it is. So that's really what I've tried to do. I don't think people have to spend 10 to 15 years overcoming trauma, the loss of a loved one, bankruptcy, divorce. I don't think they have to. And so that's really where my focus is. And so with being an author, it sort of decided I wanted to go that way. And one of it is I wanted to get my memoir out there. I self-published it initially, but I want to get it to a wider audience. So I'm prepared to take less on the come to get it to a broader reach. The second one with the novels is I started by writing one called Rats and Rain, which is a fictionalization about my work with Nigar and Epstein and Congress and the royal families around the world and all that pedophilia ring. And so I fictionalized what I had encountered because I wanted to show people how they actually groom, how they actually position themselves within society and give them a look under the veil. So my aim with both those books is to be educational, informative, and with the fictions particularly, and the memoir, entertaining, and present it in such a way that people can get it. And so that's really the trajectory of what's next and what we're doing with the Phoenix Collective and what we're doing with the books.
You're going to be a busy man. Seems like Netflix needs to pick something up here.
Yeah, well, I had someone tell me that about the Rats and Rain, but, it's... I had it published. They were smoozing me. They said, but they were really nice. Next John Wick, really high action, but with a moral thread. So even the comparison like that was very flattering. But I believe in the books. I believe the message in the book, and just waiting to see where it goes. It's it's 1 in 5 million to land an agent. It's a 1 in a gazillion to get published and turn something into like a Terminal List or a Dark Wolf. But, why the heck not? Why the heck not me? Why the heck not a message with morality? So give it a go.
My two questions here is, one, where can I get the book? Right. So I can order it right now while we're on this podcast. And then two, Vin and I being in this entrepreneurship, realm here for over a decade now, we come across all sorts of coaches, right? I'm going to put it in quotations here. And, Vin and I have a fun word for him too, but, it's not a quote.
We'll do that over a beverage.
Yeah. So Vin talked about John, guys, like, before John even got on, said, I just know one of the coolest MFers you're ever going to meet. I'm like, sweet, dude, like bring him on. And then he talked about him. And so now I'm curious, what puts you apart from the other coaches? Why should I hire you?
I don't have a lot of bandwidth for bullshit. Authenticity is very important to me. Being true to myself and also helping others be true to them. I lied. I'm a very good liar. I lied to survive as a child. I lied about what was being done to me, whether I enjoyed it or not. So to me to develop and become my authentic self has been an incredible journey and very, very hard. So I think with what I attempt to do with therapy and recovery is just be very honest with people. And when I go into people applying to want me to bring on as a coach, it's a two-way interview process because there's a lot of people who just won't qualify because they're not prepared to do the work and they don't actually want to have honest conversations They just want permission to stay the same. And I've got limited hours in my week that I can allocate to this. So number one, if you want one-on-one, it's going to cost you because my time is valuable. And 60 years of the work that I've done has cost me everything. And if you want that, I want you to put your money where your mouth is, because if it doesn't hurt you financially, you're not going to actually do the work. And I can't afford to have on my resume a loser. Now, I don't mind you coming to me as a loser, and I will struggle with you for the next 15 years to get you to be an anti-loser, but I need you to be able to put in the work. And so I think with the difference between myself and others, particularly in the trauma recovery space, is that this is lived experience. And I won't tell you that I'm good. If I need someone who needs coaching in the area of AI and VA tools, then I'm going to send them to you. Because that's part of what a good coach does, is he's a connector. And so my identity isn't tied up in this, and I don't want you as a lifelong client. I want you to get rid of me as soon as possible, because you are not my meal ticket. I just want to help you get to the next phase of where you are. And I know the coaching space, and it's a little bit like the therapy space, the therapists. They want you to be dependent, and that to me is really boring. I don't find joy in that at all.
Well, I personally couldn't agree more, and I think you're in a good realm for it. Entrepreneurs and business owners, they don't have time for bullshit. The only other downside, though, is we're Americans, so we want shit done quick.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we have to admit that lifelong tragedy and trauma can't be a flip of a switch. You have to work through the issues, find the problems, and do the effing work.
So, yeah, it's like 30 seconds popcorn plus on the microwave. And, you know, that was another thing that I found very attractive about the name of your podcast. It's 1%. You know, I got my pilot's license, and often our instructors would talk about us, about how if you were 1 degree off, by the time you got 200 miles down, you were so far off course, you're in danger. And it's often what we do, as you said, Shane, is we're Americans. We want 30 seconds plus popcorn. We want it over and done with. And what I've tried to do, and I learnt this the hard way, is I just encourage my people to, if they just make 1% change a day, then they're going to change 365%. It's impossible, not going to happen. If they change 1% a week, well, then in 2 years, they're totally revolutionized. Probably not going to happen. But if they can change 1% a year, 1% a year, then in 8 years' time, they will totally transform every area of their life. And I think we overestimate what we can do in 12 months and underestimate what God can do in 10 years. And I would much rather bet on him making a change, a lasting change, and taking your time to get there. I just think that's sustainable growth.
That's exactly where I was going to take it, was God. It all changes in the mind. You have to start with the mind. You have to be willing to change. But if you're not willing to change, or learning to get rid of addictions, or not willing to grow, then you're not going to. You're going to be stuck in your old habits. I think that's
absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Vin, are you frozen? We can edit this part out.
No, I was having some sort of. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Vin's frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Vin's been frozen. There we go. Well, we can jump back on. We can edit it back up there.
Sure. Not a problem, brother.
It's great talking to you, man. So where can I get the book? We need to.
The book. I've had to pull the book down. Hey, you're back. I had to pull the book down because it's going to the publisher. Do you read ebooks or do you read physical books?
Both. Yeah.
Why don't I email you guys a copy of the book? That's sure. It's a copy that the publishers have got it. I'm not selling it at the moment, but I'll send you both a copy of it and have a look at it.
I prefer to purchase it, but that's fine.
I want you to purchase it. But I'll tell you what, when I get the publisher, I'll call you guys up and try and come back and do a virtual book tour with you. And we'll do a book launch on your podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it.
Until then, you got to send me the book, though, because that'd be interesting.
Yep.
I'll send it to you in about 15 minutes, brother.
Yeah.
I promise. And I look forward to talking to you about it. Be great.
All
So-
right, man. Now that you're on, we'll
Yeah.
segue this back.
I was actually there. I didn't know that I was frozen. I was even trying to talk. That's funny. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. So, John, listen. This has been a phenomenal podcast. I love your story. I love what you represent. I love who you are. I love that I get to say I know you. I love that I could text you. I just love you, John, and I love everything about us. So
Appreciate it, man.
we are coming to the end of this podcast, though. So I got a couple quick questions for you before we end out for today. Number one being, you've lived such a long life. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this quickly or need some time, but what would you say is the best piece of advice that you have ever received?
From my wife, Melissa, is that when I look back at my past, it's full of so much regret. People I hurt. I wasn't the man I wanted to be for my kids because I got sick. I couldn't help it, but I got sick. And she said, and she's always reminds me, you did the very best you could with the information you had at the time. And that has given me such peace because I was a very sick man. But I tell you what, brother, every day I got up and tried. And probably the proudest thing I have is my son, who's now 26 and gloriously married. He can look at his father with pride because he knows his daddy's a fighter. His daddy might be a broken man in some spots, but he gets up every day and has for as long as he's known him, and he's got out the door and he's done the very best. It didn't matter if I was selling above ground pools. It didn't matter if I was working 3 jobs at night because I couldn't speak to anybody. Had to be by myself because I couldn't cope. He just saw his daddy try. And Melissa, she saw someone else's trash and called it treasure. And so that's probably the best advice I've ever got. I did the best I could with the information I had at the time.
I've used that line a lot in my coaching and my therapy practice because it's not only something that could free the person who's struggling with their moments of past regret, but it's also something for any of you who are listening out there that if you could really absorb what John says, it can also free you from whatever negative relationships you have with your parents, your siblings. There was a lot that I've had to overcome and forgive in my life, and that's the same line I've always used for everything, for everyone who's hurt me, and even for myself when I didn't know better. So I'm super happy to hear that you freed yourself, and hopefully some of our listeners use this too, because it is a beautiful thing and it can build so much acceptance and freedom. John,
before you finish it off there, I resonated with this so much. I took on this second job and it's 14-hour days, 6 days a week. I've put my kids to sleep personally 5 times in the last 2 months. I wake up and I feed my kids breakfast and I literally tell them, quote unquote, I'll see you tomorrow. But I know what I'm trying to build. I know what I'm trying to establish. I know that God is with me. And the struggles of a man and the burdens of a man to provide for his family, the hunger that you get to want to have a better family. It's nothing selfish. It isn't personal anymore. When you have a family, you strive to have a better life for them. And that's what he was talking about. And that right there just should hit every single man that has a family. Because when you're by yourself, you're stupid. You're an idiot, as John was saying. You care about the materialistic things. But when you have a wife and kids, all that goes away. Now you just want the best life for them possible. And you will do whatever the fuck it takes, excuse my language, to make sure that happens. So that resonated with me a lot.
Appreciate it, bro.
John, I kind of have a thought, but the name of our podcast is The 1%. And the reason that it's called The 1% Podcast is because we believe in living life in a way that allows you to be somebody who is a cut above the rest. 1% doesn't mean you have to be a billionaire. It's just about how do you show up differently. So What's your 1% life? I mean, you kind of hinted at it during the podcast. You might have even said it, but I'm just curious. How do you live in a way that makes you a 1%er?
There's 4 rules I run my life by. Number 1 is be authentic. Number 2 is imagine the future I want to inhabit. Number 3 is allow those truths to set my goals. And number 4 is to live susu. That Finnish word that means white-knuckled courage in the face of overwhelming odds. And for me, the days that I'm doing that are the days that I'm living my 1%. And they're the guardrails for my life.
That's beautiful. Never heard that term before. Would you say it was susu?
Susu. It is the best date movie you'll ever see. Like if you've ever, I mean, it's a good date movie. I mean, the guy says 12 words and kills like 1 million Nazis with a knife. Susu. It means white-knuckled courage in the face of overwhelming odds. When all is lost, the spirit of Susu manifests itself. For me, it means resilience and relentlessness.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm going to look up that word right now.
Dude, he kind of looks like you, man. Looking up the movie right now, he kind of looks like him a little bit. I'm telling you, it literally is just a badass, like, I think he's got double, like, old school machine guns, either Tommy guns or something like that, just holding him up there with a face of, let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. Life motto there, let's just fucking go.
Yeah.
I've got his t-shirt that says, sometimes you don't need a plan, bro, you just need a set of balls. Harden the fuck up.
Hey, fuck.
That's my gym t-shirt.
I like that.
Amazing. All right, John, best question here, or the final question I should say, is how can people get in touch with you? How can they find out more about you, your work? How can they connect for coaching, anything?
If they go to drjohnaking.com, or they can connect with me on social at Dr. John A. King. But if they go to the website, I would encourage them to sign up for the launch list so I can get them and connect with them there. And the other one is on my website, you'll see a button that says Phoenix Collective. Click the button, come in. We've got 8 free mastermind events coming up this year. And you can come along. This first one is next week. We talk about redefining normal. Then we talk about a whole series of other things over the years. You know, it's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of free stuff that we just want to give to people because we want to just add our bit. We want to sow to reap. I'm going to reap and make a fortune somewhere else, but I'm going to sow it here so that I do reap it there.
I love it, man. That's beautiful. Guys, gals, everyone listening, there you have it. The illustrious, impressive Dr. John A. King, one of the best people to exist. I don't know, guys. Go check out his stuff. If you're not, you clearly weren't paying attention, but I think John's got the sauce that will help you live an amazing life if you're open to exploring it. So, John, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast episode. Stick around for a minute after the show. I got another thing or two to talk to you about, but really thank you for gracing us with your story, your wisdom, and your experience on today's show. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Of course. Guys, please like, share, follow, subscribe. Go check out John's stuff. And we'll see you on another episode of the 1% Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Vin End.
And I'm Shane.
And that was John, everybody. See ya.